a trial adjournment of 90 days, as well as an outright dismissal of the case. The defense complaining bitterly about a severely late production of documents on the part of SDNY. Around 119,000 pages of potential evidence, which Trump's legal team began receiving earlier this month. Those documents are related to the initial investigation and prosecution of my next guest, who says that despite Trump's delay tactics, he remains confident that, quote, this case 100% will take place before the November election. Joining me now is Michael Cohen, former counsel to Donald Trump, the principal of the company Crisis X, the host of the Mea Culpa and the Political Beatdown podcasts, and the author of Revenge and Disloyal. And when he is not keeping busy educating all of us, Michael comes and spends some time with me and my viewers. Michael, look, we were all looking forward. Hey, Michael, March 25th was when this trial was supposed to start. Instead, that day will now be used for a hearing on potential discovery violations by the Manhattan DA's office. Now, Trump's team is also seeking to strike witnesses like you. Are you concerned at all that your role as a witness might end up being collateral damage due to a discovery dispute?
Listen, if that's what happens, I'm okay with it. I want your viewers and I want the world to know I didn't volunteer to be a witness in this case. I am subpoenaed by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and I will comply with that subpoena. If by chance that I am removed as a witness, that's okay. The DA has plenty of documentary evidence. There are plenty of other individuals that are going to be called as witnesses that, again, will hold Donald Trump accountable for whatever it is that he is being charged with. Do I think that's going to happen? No. Would I be okay if it did? Absolutely.
Michael, while Trump isn't fully planning to use a advice of counsel defense, he's filed some notice that says that he still intends to make the case that he lacked the required criminal intent to commit the charged crimes against him because people like you were handling the hush money payments. What do you make of Trump trying to thread this needle, hoping to keep his attorney-client privilege sacred and intact while still trying to punt all the blame on you?
Yeah, well, of course, that's exactly what Donald does. It's deflect, deflect, deflect. And as you said, delay for another day. You know, Katie, I don't want to get into too much of this, of the case itself, the Manhattan DA's case, because I don't think it's fair to them. Let me just say that there is something called the crime fraud exception rule, which, of course, would negate this altogether. But again, I don't really want to get into too much of the case. One of the things that we do know is that there are documents that Donald and his legal team were not given. And I stand with Ms. McCord, who was just on your show a few moments ago. Everyone, including Donald Trump, is entitled to the full set of discovery in order to defend themselves. Now, of course, except for Michael Cohen, because one of the things I talk about in my book, Revenge, specifically it's page 235, is getting documents from the government, especially when the government knows that they've done something wrong. And I'm not talking about the Manhattan DA here. I'm talking about the Southern District of New York. We have been asking under FOIA for documents, both from the Southern District of New York and from Department of Justice for 3 years. Now, it's not just Michael Cohen asking for it, and I do have Mark Zaid in one case, I have Jeff Levine in another case, but we have been asking them for 3 years. You know who else asked Katie for the documentation so that they could look into it to investigate the weaponization of the Justice Department by Donald J. Trump, Bill Barr, and others? Hakeem Jeffries, Ted Lieu, Congressman Jamie Raskin, Steve Cohen, Dan Goldman. They've all brought this stuff up. Senator Dick Durbin. And so far, nothing, up until 1 week ago. It's not surprise, surprise. 1 week ago, I finally received, out of the 456,000 plus documents, 32 documents. And the documents happen to relate to the upcoming, we'll call it, hush money business record fraud case.
Michael, I want to take a moment to kind of 30,000-foot view what's going on here, because you do different shows, you do your podcast, you've written books, and you've talked about what you've been through, but I always want to emphasize when you come on my show the humanity behind what's going on here, because a lot of us zoom in and we kind of look at a case and then we zoom out and we go about our day. I want to know from you, as we're on the eve of the first criminal trial for Donald Trump, like what accountability means to you, because you've been the only one to go to prison as a result of doing work for Donald Trump. You're the only one who, after all of these years, still is at the front of this war, at the front on the battle lines, Michael, of trying to make sure that justice is realized. And so to be this close to this first criminal trial of Donald Trump starting, what are your thoughts?
Look, again, Donald will be tried in this case, no doubt in my mind. And, it's going to be based upon the determination of the jury, not on me, not on any of the witnesses. It's going to be looked at based upon the credibility of the witnesses. But more important than the credibility of the witnesses is the documentary evidence, which, if the jury believes so, will ultimately show that he is guilty of the charges that are being brought against him. And my prediction is that Donald Trump will be held accountable.
Michael, let's also talk about some of the financial challenges that Donald Trump has been facing. You are somebody who was intimately familiar with the Trump organization and its finances. Donald Trump still hasn't posted a bond to stay execution by Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, on a $500 million judgment that she obtained against him, some of his adult children, and some of his businesses. Your thoughts about what Donald Trump is doing in order to secure that very large bond?
Donald Trump will do anything within which to ensure that that bond gets obtained and that the bond gets posted. This is a real problem for him. He had a hard enough time getting the $91 million, which, again, I can't understand how a publicly traded company like Federated, which is Chubb Insurance, was able to justify making this bond to a guy who doesn't pay his bills. That's something we all know for sure. But rest assured on something else. The last person that Donald Trump right now wants to scrap with is our unsinkable Attorney General, Tish James. She already knows what's going to happen come the day that that bond is not filed. She's going to start seizing the assets. There's going to be a major sale of these assets. And one of the things that I talk about quite often that people don't realize, just because you sell the asset doesn't mean that the full sale price goes to, let's say, Donald Trump or to Tish James in order to offset the amount of this $500+ million bond with the $110,000 a day of accruing interest. There's taxable consequences that take place on these assets as well, because his basis is substantially low. On top of that, many of these assets are also encumbered with mortgages. So it's not as if 100 cents on the dollar are going to go towards paying off that $500 million obligation.
Do you smell it? It smells like desperation. Donald Trump. Michael Cohen, thanks for being here, and thanks for sharing your insight. I appreciate it.
Good to see you, Katie.
After the break, Haiti in crisis. How a band of violent gangs overtook the capital city of Haiti.